Good afternoon, YouTube. Here we are up on the canyon trail again on Stevens Creek. So you got the creek down there. You can probably hear the water. So one of these weekends I want to go down there and check out those waterfalls that I found last spring or last winter. But anyway, I wanted to come up here. This is the area of this landslide. So this slide starts around here and it's more prominent up on the top of that rise there. Anyway, a little history on this, at least my experience. I started coming up here about 11 or 12 years ago, and when I first came up here I thought this was like an area where they had been doing some earth moving. It looked like the soil had been dug up and dirt piled up here and there, and that's what I thought it was, and I never paid any attention to it. But then in 2017, we had the real heavy rain year. That was the year the Oroville Dam overtopped, and this landslide here, as it turns out it is, came in and it just wiped out this whole section up here. The road used to go up and around that tree over there. You can see that tree stump. And then in 2018, I started looking for geocaches up here, and there's a geocache that used to be up here called Slide, and it had a description of this as being an active landslide area. So anyway, that let me know that this was a landslide here. Okay, this is the area of the landslide here, and you can see the rock here, if you want to call it rock. But I think a lot of this is based on serpentinite, although there's maybe several different kinds of rock here. But this stuff, you mix it with water, it basically flows like wet concrete. You can see right here, looks like somebody dumped a load of concrete off, like sand and clay and fine stuff and little pebbles. And this whole hillside is, that that is not very solid rock. And there's a reason that this is like this. Yeah, this is the area that slid out in 2017. This whole section here just took off down that way, and it was all composed of that rotten, crumbly rock there. And this whole top here is all that way, and you can see down here that just goes straight down to the creek. And there you can see some more of that more greenish colored serpentinite. It's kind of got a gray-green tint to it. But anyway, this slide comes out of this hill here. The top up there doesn't slide. When it slides, this gray concrete-like stuff just flows out this way. I mean, it comes out of the wall. It's not coming down and flowing this way. It's just oozing out of the wall right here. In 2018, I found that geocache listing that described this as a landslide, and then, oh, of course, it makes sense. And then a little while later, I learned that the San Andreas Fault runs right through here. That's why the creek is here, because it's following the fault. Once I knew this was a landslide, over there you can see on the other side of the canyon there's also a slide over there, very prominent slide that's about 400 feet high up there on the top. This is the slide that was mentioned in the 1973 geology report. They mentioned that this slide was active in the 1906 earthquake. And so my thinking was, oh, the fault runs through here, landslide here, landslide there. There must be like a seam of rotten rock or a fault that runs through here, and that's why there's landslides. Simple explanation. Turns out that's basically true, but there's much more behind that story. So I want to try to go up here on top of this, what I think is a tectonic block. So this is a block of land that broke off from higher up the canyon and has slid down here into the bottom of the canyon. And this area here is rock that's on the Pacific plate that's being shoved under this block. So anyway, this tectonic block starts right down there. This is the block, that's the Pacific plate, and that's coming this way a couple centimeters a year, and it's grinding underneath this tectonic block and grinding this rock here just into powder. The tectonic motion is grinding the rock up, but there's another component which we can find up there. You can see going down this trench here, there's a slope on that side, this trench, and then there's a slope up this side. And if you follow that, you'll drop down right onto the current canyon trail. But this isn't exactly where the slide is, but it's very important piece of that landslide, because for the landslide to work down there, you need that ground up rock, but you need to mix it with water to turn it into a flowable material. So the water comes from here. Now there's no creek here. If you look, there's no stream channel. We had a real heavy rains about a month ago. There's no water here. But this gully here is the San Andreas Fault. This is one of the branches of the fault. This is running parallel. It kind of goes up and turns to the right there. So this is probably an old branch of the San Andreas Fault. And right over here, this is the Pacific plate coming this way. And right here, this is a big chunk of rock. This is a big tectonic block. It's probably close to a half-mile long, runs all the way up past where the creek crossing is. And this hunk of rock here is just sitting here. It had been up on the slope. The fault came through, and this block has just been sliding downhill since it broke loose. And then the Pacific plate is grinding along underneath this block. I think this block is pinned against the north side of the canyon, and I'll show you on a separate video why I think that and what the ramifications of that are. But as far as the water, there's a big hill up here, just a big flat slope that goes up, probably 400 or 500 feet in elevation. And there's no drainage channels on that whole slope. It's just a smooth, steep slope, and it ends in this trench. And it collects all the water that comes here. It probably goes underground to where the fault is, where the Pacific plate bedrock is, and then this tectonic block is sitting on top. And the water probably percolates through the ground, and it comes out underground. It's not flowing here. There's no water on the surface. But let's see if I can get over the edge here. I'll show you where that is on the map. If you go up from that blue dot, that's where I shot the earlier clip from, at the base of that landslide. I came up here last week, but my map was cut off about where this map starts. Looking down and to the left, there's a trench running all the way up here. It turns out this trench is an important part of the landslide story and what's going on here. So let me cut over to the camera and I'll try to explain that a little bit. Okay, I climbed up the side here. So there's that trace of the fault there. And then this is up on top of this tectonic block here. Here, this is kind of the leading edge of it. So this is where all the ground up rock, either the bottom of this block or the top of the Pacific plate, is getting ground up. And you can see how it's just starting to flow here out of the side of the hill. So the water that is percolating down here from that hill is just coming underneath here, following the surface of the Pacific plate and coming out underground. And then where this hits the surface, it starts flowing. This must be kind of a mixture of all the ground up rock, but once it hits the surface and mixes with water, it just flows downhill. You know, it looks exactly like wet concrete flowing downhill. I Unfortunately, I didn't grab any pictures of that back in 2017. Let's see if we can go out here without falling over the edge. This thing is pretty precarious up here. Yeah, there you can see where it's broken free. You know, there's a kind of a slump here. And there you can see the canyon trail there. Yeah, and there's that big tree stump right over there. So that's where I was just a while ago. So yeah, this is the top of that slide. So yeah, that is kind of neat. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that this is a tectonic block here. It's probably pretty old. There's not much left of it. It averages about 100 feet from here to the creek, or a little farther up it might be about 200 feet, maybe 60 meters from the fault over here down to the creek, which would be the main fault trace. Now on the north side of the canyon, I'll show you in a separate video, there's a lot of these tectonic blocks. It starts up here a ways and goes almost to the top of the canyon, and the canyon trail follows those traces of the fault. And it looks just like this trace over here. Yeah, so I was just up by those two trees there. This block gets taller and taller the farther it goes here. You can see it's going up pretty darn high. And this looks like it could be a creek channel, but it's dry. There's never been any water flowing in here. And if you follow that slope of that hill down, it comes right down into this gully, and then it goes up again. So all of this over here is a separate block that's broken free right along this line here. Yeah, when I came up here last week, I wasn't expecting this, and I didn't really know what to think of it. And it was going back and looking at the hillshade map and realizing that this looks just like the canyon trail on the north side of the creek. Once you cross over the creek, the canyon trail goes up, features just like this, but it's on the other side of the canyon. And I never realized there were tectonic blocks on the south side of the canyon too. I'll see how far up I can get here, see if there's anything to look at up there. Followed the fault trace up here, and this seems to be the high point right here. So all the water that comes down this slope flows that way up to this point, and then the rest of it comes out this way. There's an enormous tree here growing right in that trace. So there must be some pretty good water here. Probably gets a fair bit of water coming down the hill. The trace keeps going. It gets pretty faint here. There's kind of a gully here. I imagine this is maybe an older landslide area. You can see how it's dropping straight down there. But yeah, and then it just keeps going there, probably another quarter mile that way before it peters out and drops down into the creek and disappears. This is called the San Andreas Fault Zone. So it's not just a single crack in the earth, it's multiple parallel faults. One may be active for a while and then another one gets active. So it's not just one single trace on the ground. It's maybe a quarter to a half mile wide zone of just multiple faults, and it just depends on which one lets go at any given time. But I'm thinking this is a pretty old block here, judging by how small it is. It's probably been ground up. These blocks are sliding downhill towards the creek, so the bottom of the block is down touching the water, and that's where the main branch of the fault is. Underneath, it's moving that way as the fault moves, and that's grinding away at the bottom of that block. And then as it grinds away, the block slowly goes down, and it's just like one of those rock crushers. So you have like a chute feeding rocks in, and they get crushed at the bottom and then fall through. Well, here they get crushed, and then the creek washes all that fine sediment away, and then it gets crushed some more and washes out, and the block just keeps sinking down until it disappears. That's why I think this block is probably pretty old, because there's not much left of it. You can hear the creek from here. It's probably 200 feet that way and close to 200 feet vertical. So there's still a long ways to go. I mean, it's a lot of rock here. At least this is my working hypothesis for how this whole area works up here. And if there's any geologists that have any insight on this, maybe I got it all wrong, feel free to post up in the comments section below. I've never found any really good detailed information on this. I've seen some maps with some fault traces, but there's nothing really specific on the specific geology going on in particular areas. Like that 73 paper just talks about, oh, there's some landslides and there's some tectonic blocks in the canyon. So yeah, if anybody knows any good papers that cover this area, so I'm just trying to figure out what's going on up here, because this is really interesting. The more you look at it, the more levels of detail you find. My initial thought was, oh, landslide, earthquake fault, the fault caused the slide, but what's the mechanism? And I think this is the mechanism here, so I might be all full of hot air. And yeah, if anybody has any better explanation for what's going on up here, feel free to post up in the comments section. If you have links to papers, I'd like to take a look at those. Hope you enjoyed my speculation here on what's going on. And as always, thanks for watching.